Nothing about us without us. I said nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us because on the horizon.
Welcome to the Co-Production Week podcast. I'm Kate Pieroudis, Co-Production Development Manager here at the Social Care Institute for Excellence. Co-production in care and support is about developing more equal partnerships between people who use services, carers and professionals. Instead of service providers asking what they can do for someone's problem, co-production sees citizens being central in the design, delivery and evaluation of services. But you might already know that. But did you know that at the time of recording, it's our 4th annual Co-Production Week, where we celebrate all things to do with co-production. And it's especially exciting that this is the Social Care Institute for Excellence first ever co-production podcast. Today, we'll hear from 2 areas of the country, Oxfordshire County Council.
Co-production isn't just about improving services and saving money, it's about truly involving people in the things that affect their lives.
And Kirklees Council.
People, residents, carers, people who access adult social care services have an equal voice and share power with the council when it comes to making decisions about the care and support they receive.
In those 2 areas, co-production is in full swing. It's the Co-Production Week podcast.
Nothing about us without us. I said nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us.
Tony O'Connell uses health and social care services in Bicester. He has Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. Tony's wife is his full-time carer. Tony's an active member of the Oxfordshire Co-Production Board. He gives talks to different groups of people to help improve understanding of what life is like living with dementia. Here he is interviewing Danny Woodbridge from the Oxfordshire County Council's co-production team. We at the Social Care Institute for Excellence, we're also known as SCI, have been working with Oxfordshire to support them to embed co-production in their day-to-day work with adult social care services. Let's start by hearing from Tony about why he is keen for his voice to be central in services across Oxfordshire.
I tell my story to show what happens when support and information is not good, and about the impact on carers and how important it is not to overlook dignity for people with dementia. I am here today with Danny Woodbridge, who works for Oxfordshire County Council in the co-production team. Hello Danny.
Hi Tony.
Tell me a little about yourself before we start.
Okay, thanks Tony. Right, so I've got a varied background. I've been a teacher, I've run art galleries, I've worked in publishing and in the charity sector in services for people with learning disabilities, dementia and acquired head injury. I've been involved in setting up co-produced projects in schools and the community. I've got an invisible disability myself. I was a young carer and I've got 3 children. 2 of them have a diagnosed disability.
And your job is to ensure the council is improving how it works with the people of Oxfordshire by increasing understanding of co-production and how to do it, which doesn't sound very easy to me.
You're right, it isn't easy, but it is really important and it's really quite exciting to be involved in, and it's really great that Oxfordshire's making such a strong commitment to co-production by employing a team to help make it happen.
Yeah, that's right. It's important, not just for people like me, but for everyone in Oxfordshire, because everyone will use health and social care services at some point in their lives. It affects everyone. So, we're here today to talk some more about co-production work happening in Oxfordshire.
Yep.
Danny, I'm going to ask you some questions, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
A bit like an interview, and when you have answered them, we can discuss anything else that we think of that people might be interested in to hear. Does that sound okay to you?
That sounds fine, thanks.
That's great. Okay, let's get started then. So the first question is, what does co-production mean to Oxfordshire County Council?
Right, well, it means a lot actually. The council's made a big commitment to co-production a few years ago when it started working with the Social Care Institute for Excellence, or SCI, we'll abbreviate today. And it pledged to do some things like make co-production, how to make co-production happen. So the council created a team, and the team helped to set up a co-production board and co-production champions, just to start making co-production the normal way of working. The council has also very publicly shown its commitment to co-production. So in our latest corporate plan, and I'll read out a quote from that, it says, "Every resident needs to feel they can play a part in their community. We want our residents to work as our partners in the design, purchase and delivery of all our frontline services, so our services are shaped by the people that use them." So you can see just from that the council's really trying to take this seriously and change the way it works.
Thanks, Danny. Sounds like a lot of work involved. Can you just tell me who the board and champions are?
Yes, of course. So the board's made up of carers and people who use health and social care services, or people who advocate for them or support them, and staff from both Oxfordshire County Council and the Clinical Commissioning Group here. So those people who are responsible for using public money to design services. And then the job of the board is to oversee and check and challenge and support and advise on all the co-production work in Oxfordshire. And then the champions are made up of carers and people who use services as well. But the group also includes staff from providers and people in the voluntary and community sector. This group are like our network of specialists in co-production, and so they set up co-production in the community and they help support existing co-production projects as well.
Thanks, Danny. It seems like a lot of work to do. So tell me, why do you think co-production is important?
Why do I think it's important? Well, I think it's important because co-production isn't just about improving services and saving money. It's about truly involving people in the things that affect their lives. It's about making sure people don't feel like things are just done to them, which they have no control over, especially for vulnerable people. But fundamentally, I think it's because it's the right thing to do. For me, it's as basic as treating each other as equal human beings, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. And if we get that right first, then people's well-being will start to improve straight away. People feel involved in their lives and their communities. And that's what will provide a good place to start working together to make services better. You can't do co-production unless you start from a place of strong relationships, honesty and respect, and good communication.
Thank you, Danny. That was a good answer. Yes, it is important to treat each other equally and with kindness like we do in board meetings, which is why they work so well, because everyone is an equal on the board.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, then on to your next question.
Okay.
Tell me about the support that Sky has been giving the co-production work in Oxfordshire.
Okay, so Sky's been providing support to the work from the beginning. They started by helping the council and local people work together to co-design a plan for the co-production work. So that included setting up a team and the beginnings of the board. And they helped us develop the board. And we've also got a Sky representative on the board that comes every month giving us their expert advice. They helped us recruit and train the co-production champions, and Sky are also running the co-evaluation of the co-production work, so they're going to publish a report on the findings at the end, and all of that work's been co-designed from the start with the co-production board and champions.
Sounds like important work to me, if Sky are publishing a report on it.
Yes, it is quite important. I don't think anyone's co-evaluated a piece of work on this scale before.
Okay. On to the next question. What happened so far in Oxfordshire? What do you intend to do next?
Right, well, we've been very busy, I know that much. I think we've achieved quite a lot in 21 months we've been in place. So there's 3 people in the co-production team, and we oversee all the work going on. So that involves running the board and the champions meetings once a month, which takes up a lot of our time. And we coach people and train people in co-production. We also support a lot of the co-production projects that go on with board members and champions who get involved in one way or another. A big piece of work that's happened is co-designing a co-production handbook, which is about to be launched on our website actually. So the aim of this is to help people, whether they're new to co-production or not, to navigate their way through how to do co-production. And that's been completely co-designed from scratch by our champions. The board as well is really starting to work well now. We've taken a long time to develop relationships with each other and figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And we get lots of really great feedback from people who've come and visit the board, and they say it feels like true co-production and it's like no other meeting they've ever been to. And board members have even said recently they can really feel the change starting to happen now in the council as more and more people are doing co-production. The champions have also worked hard to increase understanding of co-production inside their own organisations or their own teams and communities. And they have monthly peer sharing workshops to keep developing their knowledge and their skills, which is great. It's a really good group. We've also had some really successful co-production projects like the Moving into Adulthood project, which was about finding ways to give the right support to children with learning disabilities who are moving into young adulthood, and all the challenges that comes with that, like changing legislation and figuring out how where to live and all the challenges that generally come with growing up into a young adult. And you can actually see that video now. It's available on our Oxfordshire Co-Production YouTube channel. And we've started designing our first ever joint health strategy for adults, following co-producing a strategy for older people, which is our joint plan with health to say how we're going to support older people and adults with care and support needs. So there are, and there's a co-production projects around home care and carers, and that's just a few things. So there's lots going on and lots more to do.
Nothing about us without us. I said nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us.
Interesting stuff from Tony and Danny in Oxfordshire there, and good to hear about sharing power. It's actually the theme of this year's co-production week. I think this is really interesting because we're talking about co-production happening in a large, complex organisation which has got unique challenges. We're talking about things like tightening budgets, different teams, all working across different priorities that can change at the last minute. The good news is that this is happening, and there are really practical ways that Tony and Danny are talking about how some of these barriers can be overcome. We'll hear more from Tony and Danny later on in the podcast. But Oxfordshire is just one area where Sky is supporting the embedding of co-production. Let's fire some questions at Mark White from Kirklees Council Adult Social Care Services. Question number 1. What does co-production mean to you?
That people, residents, carers, people who access adult social care services have an equal voice and share power with the council when it comes to making decisions about the care and support they receive, and how they receive it and how we design and deliver adult social care. It means that when we have a conversation about how we're going to design a system or make changes to what we do or hopefully make improvements, then the people who are going to be impacted upon by that are present in the conversation. But it also means that those voices are heard, they're listened to and they're acted upon, so that what we do is really informed by the insight and knowledge of the people who count. True co-production is about being able to point to a process or a decision and say, look, that's where we were guided by people who'd been there, who knew what it was like to be in that situation.
Question number 2. Why do you think co-production is important?
When that conversation happens and people from our communities are part of it, I think that what we produce can be so much more effective and relevant to people's lives and the situations they have to deal with. At Kirklees, we strive to put people at the heart of everything we do. If you're going to talk about a person-centred approach, you have to really demonstrate that. So as a concept, it completely chimes with our ethos as a service and as a council. And frankly, where we've made forays into, well, certainly co-design, if not co-production, for example, designing our new policy around direct payments for adult carers, the input that we had from carers just made that policy so much more usable and fit for purpose. It was just a better end product because it was informed by real-world experience.
Question number 3. What are you already doing and what are you planning to do?
Well, we feel that in order to see genuine co-production happening, we need to create the right environment and plant a few seeds. We need to keep the narrative around co-production alive so that it's seen as something that's doable, achievable, and will help us improve the work that we do. Right now we're talking to Sky about ways we can do this, to define that mission statement and really understand, for example, what training we might need to provide for staff. We're also working with local partners like the NHS and clinical commissioning groups to understand what policies they have around patient and user involvement and see if there's areas of common ground where we can have a more joined up approach to engaging and involving people in our work. We're also working with our commission partners and other services within Kirklees to build what we call a rich picture of engagement opportunity, so we can see the touch points and where we might be able to engage with people and bring them on board with different areas of work. And we're going to continue actively recruiting people who want to join us on this journey, whether they be carers, people who access services or fellow professionals. Kirklees recently secured funding from the Local Government Association Digital Innovation Fund to look into the type of information people need to access around their individual care and support. To prepare for that work, we've identified around 50 people from the community who've said they'll work with us on that. So we've used it as a bit of a springboard for recruitment to our working group of residents we can bring on board.
Fantastic to hear about the seeds of co-production there, and also everyone being clear about what co-production means. Question number 4. Do you think there will be any problems?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for us, for any organisation that's just starting out on this journey, is to have a really clear message and mission statement about what we want to achieve. Without that, it's very difficult to get a consistent approach across a large, diverse, widely spread service. Recently, we carried out a self-reflection exercise with all of our staff who are in adult social care. That's nearly 200 people working across a number of sites in Kirklees in a range of different roles. And what we learned was very encouraging. Things like, for example, the majority of our staff believe that we as professionals don't have all the answers about a person's care, that people within the system have knowledge and understanding about what they need and they can help us work towards it. So we think the right attitudes are there, but we also found inconsistencies around people's perception of what co-production is, how to do it, and whether we can actually do it in many circumstances. So there's a communication and a clarity issue there. But secondly, like any large complex organisation, when you're looking at embedding a culture and a behaviour, that takes time, particularly if it might be quite a change to how people have worked before, how they've initiated projects, for example, and well-established systems. People have pressures, they have workloads, and sometimes if something is seen as additional to that, with a payoff somewhere down the line, well, inevitably things that are more immediate and critical take precedence. So there's definitely a challenge to embed co-production in such a way that it's not seen as compromising the day-to-day work, but actually enhancing it and increasing our effectiveness.
And finally, question number 5. How will you get over these challenges?
Well, we now have a user voice and experience group, which will be an advisory team for colleagues who are initiating new projects. Colleagues will go to the group, explain what they're going to be working on, and the group can look at that rich picture of opportunity, look at our working group and say, well, we've got these people who have said they'd like to get involved in this type of work or activity, we've got these resources to co-produce. The group will act as a sort of a matchmaker for colleagues, so the process of getting into co-production will be so much more accessible. And our project documents are being rewritten, so the project lead gets asked the question, what are you doing about co-production? And we're already seeing carers and people who access services being part of meetings and planning sessions, and we hope to see much more of that going forward.
Our thanks to Mark for being grilled on what it's like to make co-production a reality on a day-to-day basis across a large, complex organisation.
Nothing about us without us. I said nothing about us without us.
Back to Tony and Danny in Oxfordshire now to finish off this podcast. Tony wanted to know, what's the next step in the project?
So at the moment it's all about Co-Production Week, which is celebrating the principles of co-production and learning about it. We're running our own festival in Oxfordshire, and we're also involved in the Sky celebrations as well. That's part of this, why we're doing this podcast. But after that, we're planning to recruit more co-production champions, and we'll be running more and more advanced co-production training. We're hoping to make the training available to all staff and probably beyond, as people will start requesting it, no doubt. And the plan is to run that training with board members and champions. We'll carry on supporting people doing co-production work, so supporting people to change how they work and look at the system itself and adapt to working in a different way. Hopefully until nobody asks what co-production is again.
Thanks, Danny. It sounds really important that people still remember what co-production is. We don't want it to stop.
That's right.
Right, 2 more questions. The tricky one first. Have there been any challenges to co-production? and how have we got over these problems?
I thought you might ask me something like that.
I was paid to.
Okay, yeah, it has been challenging, yeah, I have to be honest. But also inspiring and a huge learning curve for everyone. It's not easy when you're trying to influence other people to change their behaviour and how they work, because at the end of the day, people only change if they want to. But we've seen lots of people really positive about co-production. There's been a few people who are sceptical and a bit negative about it, but mostly people really get it and they see why it's important. I think the major challenge has been time. There's a real expectation and a pressure on people to make stuff happen fast, but it takes time to build those relationships and work together well and involve people meaningfully. And it takes time to change processes as well. You can't do it overnight, it just doesn't work. I think the other big challenge really is where people are asked to do co-production like a project, but the systems and the processes around that support it don't make it easy to do so. So that's why we're gradually trying to change those as well, like putting co-production in project paperwork, in contracts with providers, in our processes, and introducing it into staff training and hopefully induction, etc. Because at the moment we're starting to see like a snowball effect happening. More and more people start to behave differently and take on the principles of co-production. That kind of the momentum seems to affect other people. They see it happening and they're more willing to take it on themselves, so the momentum kind of builds. That's really exciting actually, and it's very rewarding after a long period of working really hard to see things actually shifting.
Yeah, thanks for that, Danny. When I first joined, I have seen a lot of changes to the board. When I first started, I didn't really understand the word co-production. And one day I got it and said, why don't we just say working together?
Yeah.
For me, I decided it was like there's an invisible wall between the authorities and the community. And we all are we're breaking this wall down. So with co-production, we can start working together, which makes things better for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you saying about the wall. It's just a good analogy, really, because it's a them and us situation. But if you break down the wall, we can start to see each other as human beings, and we've all got needs and we've all got vulnerabilities, and at the end of the day we're all doing our best. I think that's been a big effect of the board actually, and some of the work that we're doing, especially with board members, where people are starting to just see each other as the same. We're all working for the same aims and we're all trying our best to get it right.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and at the end of the day, we're all experts in our own lives.
That's right.
Okay, Danny, this is the last question.
Right.
This is the worst one. What would your advice be for organisations trying to do co-production?
My advice for other organisations? Right, well, firstly, I'd probably repeat the same thing. You have to give it time. I know it's annoying to keep hearing the same thing, but I can't emphasise that enough. I didn't even realise how much time it would take when we first started doing it, and it's only when things start to change that you realise how much time it does take. Because trying to change how people and organisations work, and how people and organisations behave, and how processes work and need to change, it's really complicated, and it absolutely needs time for it to work. I think the other thing I'd say is to plan what you're going to do and give people that are trying to do it the right kind of support to make it happen. It's been a steep learning curve for us in Oxfordshire. We did it without a roadmap and without much of a plan, and I think we've probably built some really good relationships with the people involved as a result of kind of struggling through it together. But I spoke to another local authority the other day, and they've put quite a bit of time and effort into planning their co-production work. They're doing similar stuff to us, or starting to, but I think it might be a bit easier for them because they've put some good plans in place at the start. The other thing I'd say is to look at the processes and the systems at the same time as trying to do any co-production work or projects, because change like this is universal. It's not just a project or a few projects. You can't expect people to squash a square peg into a round hole and then be surprised when the peg breaks. You've got to look at it as a whole system approach. So if you want to do it, plan it, look at it as a system change, only do it if you say you can honestly want to align to the principles, so genuine and not tokenistic, and make sure you give it time.
Thanks, Danny. That was a very good interview.
I hope so. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me over, and thanks for the coffee.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our guests today, Tony and Danny from Oxfordshire and Mark from Kirklees. And enjoy Co-Production Week. If you want to know more, including how the Social Care Institute for Excellence can help you to improve your co-production and make it a reality in your day-to-day work, please go to www.scie.org.uk/co-production. Thanks for listening.
Nothing about us without us. I said nothing about us without us.